Hi, my name is Jonathan Hicks. I'm back at the Dice Cup, and this evening I'm joined by
Dean.
Sophie.
Alan.
And we've just finished playing Near and Far, and we've been using the Amber Mines expansion. And now it's a sort of worker placement adventure game of sorts. So you have some kind of character. So I was the toad guy in this case. And you have your own sort of personal board. You can kind of acquire adventuring companions that are going to help you. But typically when it's your turn, you either go to the town, and there's a few different worker placement spots you can go to in the town, or you decide to go on an adventure, in which case you kind of go exploring on this map up here and have adventures and get stuff. And because we've been playing with the Amber Mines expansion, in this case we could also go and explore the mine and sort of go wandering and get treasure and things in the mine. So typically the kind of things you want to do are, if you go to this spot, you can buy a companion. You sort of hire them and they come and join you, and they're kind of colour coded. So the sort of red one goes, you can only have one red one. So you get these and they're going to help you in various ways. So this guy, for example, increases how far I can move when I go adventuring. The eyes obviously make you better at seeing things. Hands are like skills, which are used for checks. And of course, swords are important for fighting. So you require some guys, and then you might decide to go on an adventure. So we start, in this case, because of the scenario we were playing, we started in Hogtown. And you get a certain amount of health. Your party sort of add up all the hearts here. So I think I was starting on about 10. And then you use your movement and you go exploring. So you go a certain number of spaces, and to start with you can see there's all these tents all over here. These are all blank. So if I kind of go one space, I can you spend some of your hearts in order to place one of your tents. So you start with a bunch of tents down here, and you take your tent and you put it on the appropriate space and you do the action. So in this case I get money from this spot, and that's nice. So some spaces will get you crystals. Some spaces are like trade routes. You're kind of going for pairs here. So if you manage to get this one and the matching one at the top here, then you're sort of getting points for getting pairs. So you're racing to a certain extent to get your tents out on the various places. It also makes it easier to move. It's quite expensive when it's blank. You have to pay hearts to move at empty spaces. But once the tents are out, it's much easier to move around. If you go over these spots, you've got to fight bandits. So this is where the combat's going to be quite important. You sort of add up all your swords. You get to roll a dice. And if you don't quite have enough, in this case to defeat the ancient robot, I would need 9, then again you can sort of spend hearts to help you. So you can mitigate the dice in various ways, usually by spending hearts when you go adventuring. But crucially, most of them are gone now, but there are these quest spots. Have you got any of the books, Alan? So some of these spots, there we go, would have a book on it. And you can see there are certain numbers here, and you'd get the book and you would read out adventure number 41. And there's some kind of story, so I'll just give you a quick example of the sort of thing you might find in here. So you'll read some kind of flavour text, and then typically you've got 2, or in this case there are 3 options. So you're either testing your skills. Remember I said the hands, that you sort of count up how many hands you've got and you roll a dice. So in this case you could offer to help do some cleaning here, or you could try fighting. So that, in that case, you're using your swords. And if you manage to beat the check, then again you sort of read the flavour text for the result of your adventure, and then you're getting some kind of reward if you manage to get high enough. So your reputation might increase or decrease possibly. You can get some gems, and various things are going to happen. So those adventures will happen every time you try and do one of those book things over there. Just a few other spots you might want to do when you're in the town. So this is the general purpose spot for exchanging. There's different kinds of resources. You've got food and coins and gems, and you can swap them around for these tokens. If you're kind of racing to get certain numbers of the tokens, first person to get 4 of them kind of claims this, which was the extra points at the end. This is, as I say, is where you buy the people. This is where you buy these, what are these, pack kiwis or something? And they increase your movement and also let you carry treasure. So this spot over here is where you can get treasure cards, which will help you in various ways. So this gives me +1 when I'm doing those quest rolls, if I'm fighting or doing skill checks, things like that. This one, it allows you to sort of complete cards. At the start of the game you get a bunch of these cards, and you can see I've got a few here. And typically to get these extra items which are worth points and give you some sort of ability, you're spending stuff on the left. So these red tokens that you're trying to pick up from quests, plus maybe gems and food and other things. So you spend those, and that's another way of getting points. This is just a spot to get a bit of bread. This, as I say, is where you get the treasure from. But crucially, this is the spot where you go on your adventure down the mine. So you can take your character and you sort of move like normal movement a certain number of spots. And then there's typically some kind of skill check, for example, to go onto this space. You need to pass a 6, and then you're going to get the reward. If there's no check here, you just kind of get free stuff, which is great. There's a few other things, but hopefully that gives you a rough overview of how it works. You sort of keep playing until someone's run out of all the tents, and you count up all the various bits of scoring you get, and most points wins. What do we think?
Yeah, it's quite nice. I quite like the storytelling element. The book adds a little bit. It's not particularly complicated. Once you're towards the latter end of the game, you're almost bound to pass the quests, but by then most of them have already gone because people have been picking them up early. So it adds a bit of theme and character to it. Not sure about the mines bit. I think there might be a little bit too much going on, but then we're playing with an expansion. I think without the expansion it strips it down a bit. So I think I would say for new players I'd start with the basic game, play that a few times before you add the expansion in. It's got elements of other games. It's got a storytelling element that's in Arabian Nights, but it's got the standard worker placement stuff, and you can stuff each other up by standing on the spot where somebody else wants to go. So yeah, all in all, it's quite a nice game. It's got a bit of replayability to it. Yeah, it's generally quite a nice game. I quite enjoyed it.
Sophie?
Yeah, it's a very adorable game, and then once you get into it you realise there's more going on than you first thought, because there's a few things to play off against each other. I really like the story aspect. I don't know how many different quest plots there are, because I think that might limit it a little bit, like once you've played through them. But I enjoyed very much how the game looks, and collecting my riding kiwis was my favourite thing.
Okay. Alan?
I really enjoy this game. I played it now about 26 times. Like these maps here, you can actually turn them over. I will do this one, and you have different locations you go to. As you can see, you've got different places, and volcanoes, you've got oceans, and all stuff like that. And each one is represented in a whole new set of stories in the book. So each map has their own stories, and you've got 11 maps in total, so you've got quite a lot of replayability there for it. And if you don't want to play with the big stories, you just want quicker mode, you've got what we call the arcade mode. It's got a quick card, you just read the simple text it's got on there and do that quickly, so it can cut down how much time you're playing with it. The Amber Mines has added a few extra bits on it. If you want to play simple, like Jonathan was saying, you just take this one off here, for example. It changes the mine, so you get one treasure, you get the treasure what it says on here, or you can go to one location here for each skill you've got, and you just do the L shape to match with what you get.
So these are like modules, aren't they? You can sort of add this board on as part of the Amber Mines expansion. This is also a module that can be added in, which varies it from the base game.
Yeah, I really enjoy this game, so I like it a lot.
Rating?
I give it about a 9 or 10. I'm saying 9.5.
Okay. Sophie?
Ooh. 7.5.
Okay. Dee?
I think I'd give it a 7. What I will say is, on Sophie's comment about replayability, because the nature of the stories is just adding flavour to it, it's not really going to wreck the replayability to have played the same scenario again. You can have a fairly good idea that if you rob the merchant, you're going to get some money, get dishonour, and possibly get a little bit of food or a faction point. Whereas if you help him fight the bandits, you will get a bit of money because he'll pay you for something, and you'll get some reputation. So there are really no surprises in the story. So I think it's got the replayability, even if you were playing the same ones several times. So I'd give it a 7.
Okay. I really enjoyed it. I like the worker placement aspect. It's fairly straightforward once you get the hang of it. It looks like there's a lot of options, and there are plenty of options, but each option's simple. You go here, you get some bread. You go here, you pay a bit of bread, and you get a kiwi. So I really like all that. But the adventuring is great. There's lots of freedom in terms of where you can go. As Alan says, with all the different maps, it does feel very different each time. But I love the stories. I mean, some people are going to like it, some people aren't. But personally, I thought it was great. So I loved reading them out, loved hearing the stories, and what should I pick this time? And it's nice. As Dean says, it's fairly predictable, but they're well written. So I really appreciated that. The artwork's fantastic, I think. I mean, everything Ryan Laukat does is great, I think. But as a game, as a package, I think it's fantastic. I'd be on an 8.5, I think. All right, thanks very much for watching. That was Near and Far with the Amber Mines expansion.